Hey everybody, hey, welcome to another brand new season of East to West. Man, am I glad and I'm excited to finally figure out all this technology. The more fancy I try to get, the more I have to learn and the longer it takes to figure things out. But hey, anyway, I'm glad to be here. I'm glad that today has been just a good day. I wish all the students that have moved back just a great season, a great school year, that they'll find just many blessings and joy throughout this year, and many friends, and just ready to get this thing kicked off again. I hope you guys have had a great summer. And this is kind of loud. Yeah, I hope you guys had a great summer. We had a great summer. We just got to hang out with my grandboys yesterday. That's always a blessing, of course, just to be able to hang out with them and watch them grow and watch them learn and just what they like and don't like and dislike. And you know, they're at the age now where the world is still innocent to them and they're still learning and still processing everything. And so I'm just glad that I get to be here to enjoy that. And so today we're going to start our series on the different times in the Bible when Jesus really said, I was willing. I know he said it a lot, he meant it a lot, he did it a lot, but there's really just one story that I just really would like to focus on today to really kind of kick this thing off. And it's one of my favorite stories. It's one of my favorite stories in the Bible because here's this guy who the world told him to stay away, that he has no right in society, that because of his condition, he just had to be secluded. He had to be cut off, and he had to declare that he was unclean to everybody. And man, can you imagine in our sinful nature, in our sinful world, if God said that we had to walk around saying, I'm unclean, I'm unclean, oh my gosh, it would just be torturous. I mean, just absolutely torturous. So here's this guy. We don't know how he got leprosy. We don't know what kind of life he had before leprosy. We don't even really know what kind of life he had after leprosy. But we do know the encounter, and we do know what happened in the encounter. And so, you know, I want to talk about both sides of that today, because both sides were willing, and we always focus on the words that Jesus spoke, you know, those powerful 3 words when he says, I am willing. But we never really focus on what the leper was willing to do to get healed. What was the leper really willing to do to get healed? Because in Matthew 8 it begins out that Jesus had just spoken to this multitude of people. And he was walking down this dirt road, and this leper approached him. Now, what kind of strength and courage does that take to walk up to somebody that you've never met, but you've heard about, and to break all society's rules and customs and what they expected you to do to get into the presence of Jesus? I mean, this guy broke every rule against leprosy that was known to man back then. He didn't declare to Jesus that he was unclean, and that's amazing. That's just something that I just thought about. You know, this guy spent, I don't know how long he spent declaring to others, I'm unclean, I'm unclean, I'm unclean. But he never comes up to Jesus and says, I'm unclean. And so here he is, he approaches Jesus, and he immediately falls down to his knees, which is powerful to me because he didn't know who Jesus was. But just because of what he had heard from the powerful testimonies of others, he knew there was something different about this guy. He knew there was hope in this guy. And he knew that if he could just get to him, he would find joy. He would find peace. And maybe he didn't think that. Maybe he didn't think, maybe he thought, man, I don't know what's going to happen. Yeah, I've heard all those other stories. Yeah, I heard all those other times Jesus healed this person or raised this person from the dead or fed all these thousands of people. Yeah, I've heard that, but I don't know if he can really heal me. Can he heal me? I've got this dreaded disease that's eating my body away, that's cut me off from society, possibly family and friends, and I'm in complete isolation. Sound familiar? Complete isolation, just separated from society. And here comes this guy that can change all that. And even though he wasn't 100% sure, he was still willing. I don't even know how far he had to walk. The Chosen series does a really, really great job. If you ever get a chance, YouTube it, The Chosen, the leper. It really just shows just a good, paints a really great picture of what this guy went through to get his healing. You know, he tried to cover himself up. He tried to sell his possessions so he could get money for food. I mean, these guys just ate the scraps of whatever was left. I mean, once you got leprosy, that was it. There was no hope for you. They cast you out. You know, 100 years ago, there was a leper colony in Hawaii. And if you ever get a chance to check out the movie, it was just fantastic because this Catholic priest was stateside, and the Catholic Church brought all the priests together and said, "Does anybody want to go there?" And none of them wanted to go because they knew once they went there, they would never be allowed to come back. Ever. They were going to be there till they died. And one guy stood up and he said those three magical words. He said, "I am willing." And he went there. And when he got there, this colony was in such despair and hopelessness because they just basically shipped him to this colony and said, "Fend for yourself. You're on your own. We count you as nothing now because you have leprosy." And a lot of these poor people caught leprosy and they didn't even intend to catch leprosy. Families were separated. Husbands and wives were separated. Brothers and sisters were separated. And they were cast out and they were put in this island where they could never leave. They could never ever know what happened to their loved ones. Their loved ones could never ever know what happened to them. They couldn't even write letters because they were afraid that the disease would be on the paper and it would spread quickly to the other islands. They couldn't even write letters. So once they went to this island, it was completely cut off. You were cut off. It was like as if you were dead already. So here are these guys suffering with this disease, horrible disease, and we'll get into that in just a second, and cut off from the world, no hope, and here comes this guy who says, "I am willing to go." And because he was willing to go, that colony within 10 years just turned around. It was amazing. Yes, was there still sickness? Was there still death? Was there still despair? Absolutely. But there was a guy there that constantly brought hope. Constantly brought hope to them. And in that moment of hope, even in their despair, they felt Jesus. And they were able to die with dignity, most of them. They were able to die with Jesus. They were able to die knowing one person cared about them. One person loved them. And that priest, in a bodily form, in his actions, showed Jesus to those guys, to that colony. And it's just it's something that people talk about to this day. Just imagine if that guy would have said, "I'm not willing to go. I'm not willing." I mean, those people would have had nothing. They would have had nothing. They would have had this horrible disease and died with no hope, died with no knowledge of this loving God that loved them. And so it's just a crazy, cool story. I love it. I love hearing stories like that where people just say, you know what, I'm going in the lion's den. I'm going into the leper colony. I'm willing to go because I know that they need Jesus just as much as I need Jesus. And so it was just fantastic that they got to experience that, you know. And even in his dying moments, when people would come to visit, they asked him, "Why on earth did you do this? You got leprosy, and now you're gonna die from it. You could have stayed on the mainland. You could have stayed where it's safe, and died an old man. Why did you come here?" He said, "I came here to this island, this broken island full of sickness and hurting, because Jesus came to this earth that was broken and hurting, and he died for us." And so it's just amazing when you can have that connection with Jesus, when you can have that understanding of man, why Jesus came here. I mean, we talk about all the cool stories, but if we really get down to the nuts and bolts of it, man, Jesus came to die to save us. He came to die to show how much he loved us. I mean, that is amazing. So anyway, so back to the story. So here he is. He's trying to sell his possessions. People are beating him with sticks, telling him he's got to get out of town. And so he starts walking. And I don't know how he knows Jesus is walking down this road. Maybe somebody told him. Maybe somebody pointed it out to him. But all of a sudden he sees off in a distance, he sees this big crowd following this one guy. And at any point he could have just said, you know what, I'm scared. It's not worth the risk. It's not worth it. If I get too close, they're going to beat me. They're gonna call me names. They're gonna just rebuke me, and I can't go through that again. But he said, but you know what? I'm willing. I am willing to take the risk. And so he walks and he approaches Jesus, and you know, it's that whole interaction to me is just one of the best stories in the Bible. It's just so interacting because, like I said, in the Chosen series, as he's walking, the disciples behind Jesus is like, "Oh, it's a leper, Jesus. Don't go any closer. Stop. Don't go any closer." And they're like, the disciples behind Jesus have this look of horror on their face, like, "Oh my God, it's a leper. Stop. Don't go anywhere near. Don't go any closer." And Jesus just turns around and looks at his disciples with a big old grin on his face. That's the kind of Jesus I like. I know. The guy that has a big old smile on his face, because he's about to do something. Jesus is about to show some love in this guy's life that probably hasn't felt love for years. He's about to put a little bit of Jesus in his life. So he turns around and he walks up to the guy, and the guy falls to his knees and he says, "Lord, I've got this terrible disease, but I believe if you're willing to heal me, I'll be healed." Whew. Can you imagine what kind of tense moment for the leper was after he said that last word? "I know you can heal me," period. And then the wait. But guess what? There was no wait. There was no contemplation. There was no, let me think about it. Let me think about all the sins that you've done in your life. Let me think if you're worthy enough to get healed. Reminds me of another story. Peter gets out of the boat. Jesus is walking on the water. Peter gets out and they're like, "Oh no, it's a ghost, it's a ghost, it's a ghost." And Jesus is like, "If you think I'm a ghost, come out to me." So Peter gets out, starts walking on the water. As long as his eyes were fixed on Jesus, he walked on the water. As soon as he turned away and he started hearing the rushing of the waves and all that stuff, and the wind and the thunder and the lightning, he started to sink. And he called out, "Jesus, save me." It wasn't like, and it doesn't declare that Jesus ran to Peter. It doesn't declare that Jesus sauntered to Peter. It said, as soon as Peter just sank and he cried out, "Help me, Jesus," the next word was, look it up, In any translation. I love it because a lot of times the different translations, a lot of words are changed or they're moved around or they're switched around. And I've looked it up. I've looked up over 18 different translations of this because I find this to be one of the most powerful words in the Bible. When Peter cried out, "Help me, Jesus," it says immediately. In all 18 different versions, it says immediately Jesus reached out and pulled Jesus up. Immediately. So it's amazing. Jesus is an immediately God. Doesn't feel like it sometimes. It doesn't feel like he's reaching out immediately, but in his way and in his timing, it is immediate. So here's this leper, this poor leper, with the crowd behind him screaming and hollering, "Leper, run! Oh, leper! He's unclean. He's not worthy. Don't do anything." And here he is, rock solid focus on Jesus. Rock solid. He's not going to let that distract him. And he hears 3 words back that changed his life forever. Changed his life forever. He looked up and he looked into the face of Jesus. And The Chosen does this very well. I love it. Because when he looked up, you know what he saw? He saw a smiling Jesus. He saw a Jesus who reached out and put his hand on his shoulder. Unheard of in those days. Unheard of. You think 6 feet is a social distancing now? Social distancing back there for lepers was miles out in the middle of nowhere in a cave. And the people would come and throw the scraps from their dinners over this cliff for them to have something to eat. And here's this guy that he heard of, didn't know, had no other interaction with, touching him, putting his hand on his shoulder. And what's next is powerful. I've talked about it a lot on this show. Everybody knows the story. He said those 3 words that changed his life forever. He said, "I am willing. Be healed." And the leper looks down. And what does he start to see? He doesn't see sores growing. He doesn't see sores being bursted open. He sees his skin returning to normal. Can you imagine? I can't even fathom what healing like that feels like. What healing like that would look like. I know it still happens today. I believe in my heart of hearts that Jesus still heals people that way. I do. I believe it. I believe in the power of the Holy Spirit. Some people say the Holy Spirit is left. He ain't left. He's getting more and more stronger and powerful by the day. And I just can't imagine what that moment felt like for this guy. You know, just to look up and see that he was clean. And what else is really cool about what The Chosen does is once Jesus has this interaction with the leper and he gets healed and they embrace, they hug each other. Probably the first hug he's had in years. I can't imagine. I'm a hugger. I love to hug my grandboys. I love to hug my kids. I love to hug my friends. I love to hug my wife. I couldn't imagine if I had to go 10 years or more, or however long, and not being able to hug somebody, and not being able to see somebody up close. I mean, how did the guy not go mentally off his rocker? How did that not happen? And it's amazing that Jesus restored all of that. And what's crazy is in The Chosen is when he's embracing this guy, like I said, when Jesus is holding him and embracing him, they pay him back to the crowd. And you know what the crowd is doing at this point? Nothing. They ain't got nothing to say. When Jesus breaks through and he heals and he moves, you ain't got nothing to say. You just got to sit there and be in awe of the moment. And so Jesus in this guy, I'm not even going to call him a leper anymore because at this point he's a healed blessed, mighty man of God now. And we don't know what happened to this guy after Jesus left him. We don't know. But in my heart of hearts, I believe he went and became one of the greatest ministers, missionaries in the entire universe of all time. I just believe that he went back and all those people that just put him down, cast him out, just were like, hey, wait a minute. Whoa, wait a minute. Could you imagine all the times people would say, oh, it's that oh, wait a minute. Whoa. Wasn't that the leper a few days ago that was here and we were just trying to run him out? You know? And I could just picture this guy who had leprosy who a week ago was proclaiming unclean, was now proclaiming Jesus healed me. Jesus healed me throughout the entire town. To everyone who ridiculed him, everyone who rebuked him, I hope he walked up and said, guess what? Jesus healed me. Your words didn't break me. This leprosy didn't kill me. You throwing me out didn't destroy me. It may have discouraged me. It may have given me a sense of hopelessness. But I never gave up. And because I never gave up, I met the guy who gave it up for me. And so I could just imagine the joy. And if he had a family, I can imagine the knock on the door. And here's this wife that's probably not seen her husband for years. Because at this point, by the time his leprosy had gotten so bad on him, it had probably been a few years. You know, and to see this husband who was dead is now alive, healed, standing at her doorway. I mean, when Jesus heals somebody, he doesn't just heal that person. He heals all the relationships around them, all the broken relationships around them. And it's amazing. It's just amazing. And God is just always willing to do that for people. Always willing to do that for people. He's always willing to say, I am willing. I mean, but we have to be willing to take the step. We have to be willing to say, Lord, I am unclean. Man, I got a lot of junk in my life. I got a lot of junk in my life. I got a lot of stuff I gotta give to God daily. But I always hear those words, I'm willing. I always hear those words. And it's just amazing. That story is just one of the most powerful stories in the Bible. I mean, he's had other interactions with lepers, you know, and he's healed them all. But this one seems to me to be the most intimate, most personal. Because I'm sure I know Jesus knew all that that leper had to go through to get there. He knew. The leper didn't surprise Jesus on that road today. Jesus didn't go, whoa, I didn't see you over there. I know Jesus took that road because he knew he was going to run into that guy. Just like when he went to Samaria to meet the woman at the well. And his disciples were like, why are you going over there? That's a bunch of Samaritans over there. We don't go over there. We're Jewish people. We don't go over there. And Jesus was like, we're going over there. And so they set camp. Jesus goes to a well to get water. There's a woman there. And he starts to tell her about her life. Not in a judging way, not in a condemning way, but he wanted her to know who he was. In fact, she was the first one he said, yes, I am he. And she went back to the village. She didn't just get a bucket of water and say, oh, well, that was kind of cool. He knew stuff about me. Oh, that's awesome. That's cool. He did a bunch of magic stuff. That's awesome. She didn't do that. She went back and got people and said, hey, you got to come meet this guy. This guy knew everything about me, but he loved me enough that I didn't feel condemned. I didn't feel condemned. You know, women back in those days, and unfortunately a lot of times now, get condemned. You know, it's like it's fair for one sex, but it's not all right for another, and they get condemned, and then they get put out, and then they get shamed, and they get called names, and they get just whatever. But Jesus said, "I'm willing to walk through this territory that nobody else is willing to go through, to come to some well," which was really cool because the well is actually the well of Jesse, which is really, really, really cool. We're going to talk about that story as we go along in this series. But so nothing is random with Jesus. Nothing is random. Jesus knows everything, every step. Just like it says in the Bible that every step that we have is laid out. Every step that Jesus took was already laid out. Jesus didn't wake up one day and go, I wonder where I should go today. Or I wonder who I'm going to see today. Or I wonder who I'm going to meet today. You know, easy way to prove it for me, when he's talking in the house and the four guys carry their friend up to get healed. And they go up to the top to start cutting the roof. You know, my wife is from Aberdeen, South Dakota, and they have this really cool museum there. And they have a replica of a mud hut, what the Native Americans would live in in those lands around where Aberdeen is now in South Dakota. And it's I'm telling you, the branches are probably 8 to 10 inches thick. I mean, they're humongous. I mean, and probably 3 to 4 feet deep, with mud packed in. So it wasn't like these guys carried their friend up to the top of the roof and they just started peeling away the leaves and the branches. I mean, they had to take some effort. I don't even know where they found a saw. But it says that they were cutting and parts of the roof were starting to fall down. Everybody else in the room starting to look up and wonder, what the heck? What in the world is going on? Should we leave? Is the roof about to fall down on us? And what's Jesus doing? Preaching. Speaking. He knows what's coming. He already knew that guy was going to come down. And he just keeps doing his thing. He just keeps trying to reach out to people. He didn't let the distractions of the world keep him from doing what he wanted to do. So yes, so that to me helps me to prove that Jesus knew everything. I mean, when the woman touched his hem and he said, "Who touched me?" But a lot of people say, "See, Jesus didn't know she touched him." Nah, that's not true. That's not true. Jesus knew who touched him. He wanted to know if she had the faith to stand up and say, "I'm the one that touched him, touched the garment." So it was a moment of seeing if she would proclaim her faith, and he didn't. Not because he didn't know. So anyway, hey, I just want to say before I go, thanks a lot for everybody that tunes in to this, to my show, and listen. Hopefully, I've been able to cheer somebody up and encourage somebody who's struggling with some stuff in their life, or know somebody that's struggling, and just cling on to those 3 words. You know, we talk about how much Jesus loves us, which is great. That's fantastic. I love it. I love that the fact that the God of the universe loves me, with all my junk and brokenness, loves me. But I also want us to focus on that aspect of Jesus that always says, "I am willing." You know, one of the greatest "I am willings" is in the Garden of Gethsemane. I can't have it. In the garden. I'm just going to say in the garden. The Garden of G. One of the greatest "I am willing." And we're going to talk about that next week. So just make sure to tune in next week. I love you guys. I love all you out there. I'm glad to count you as a friend, family. And just remember, here at East to West, we just love you guys. And God loves you. And just always remember what you're going through. Just say, just know that God is always willing to meet you in your need, and to bless you, and to heal you, and to love you, and that's all He wants to do. He's just, that's His sole purpose, is just to love us and to heal us and to bless us and to fight for us. And sometimes we feel like God loses the battle, but He never loses. God never loses the battle. God always wins. And what God's win may not look like a win to us, but God always wins, and God is always willing to seek out and to kneel down and to hug and to embrace and to just say, I love you. I love you. You know, that's the kind of Jesus I picture. I'm on this bench. I'm sad. I'm broken down. People are walking by, and here comes this guy, this guy nobody else would want to talk to. Scraggly guy, tattered clothes, just whatever. And he takes time out of his day to sit down next to me and say, I'm here for whatever you need. And so with that, I'm just going to say, I love you guys. Have a great week. And just we love you guys. Have a great day, everybody.